Yes, amazing. So there's a reason I love this image. This image is of the space shuttle taking off. And I love this image for a few reasons. One, I'm a big space geek. I always follow what's going on with SpaceX and all this kind of stuff. Um, and there's a second reason I love this image, though, because a few years ago I was reading an article on rocket science and how kind of the rockets propel space into space, and I was reading about this rocket on the screen in front of you that the space shuttle is attached to, and you can see the fuel tanks are massive, like huge fuel tanks. And I learned a really interesting fact reading the book that day, that those rockets are full of fuel. And when the rocket takes off, it burns off 96% of all of the fuel in those rocket tanks in the first 7 minutes. Okay, so huge amounts of fuel burnt off really rapidly, burning off a lot of energy. And that is to take off, to come off the ground and get into space. Okay, why does it take so much energy? Why? Because being held down by gravity. We all are familiar with gravity. So really what's happening there is it has to burn off a lot of energy just to get off the ground and try to get into space. It's trying to get into what's called, there's a speed called escape velocity. When a rocket hits, boom, it breaks free of the atmosphere and goes into space. Okay. Now, I remember when I was reading that, and I've spent the last few years launching since I was in university, and I was launching businesses, and some of them have been incredible successes. And I've also had the ones that, didn't go according to plan, right? And that's what I want to talk about today, because when I was reading about those space rockets, it really reminded me of what it felt like when I was launching businesses. Okay, especially in the early days when I hadn't really figured out how to do it properly. I always felt like I was burning off a lot of energy, but I wasn't really making much progress. I wasn't getting off the ground very much. I knew I was burning off a lot of, but I wasn't making huge progress. And I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that. Like, I'm sure you're all working pretty hard. I rarely come to a session like this, and the founders are going, yeah, actually, we don't have that much to do. Yeah, it's pretty relaxed. I don't think any of you guys are going to say that. You guys are super hard working. You're super driven. You're working weekends. You're probably like looking at your friends with a cushy job and going, oh, but at the same time, you wouldn't change it for a minute because you're an entrepreneur, okay? Or a marketer for a world-class business like you guys are. Okay, so what I want to talk about in this session is, for you, there are essentially forces of gravity for your company and for you in your stage of your startup that are holding you down. It's a bit like gravity, okay? And the gravity for you is that you're doing things you don't need to do, or you're doing the wrong things. You're probably doing some right things too, but because you haven't done it before, you're doing a load of stuff and hopefully some of it works. Okay. So what I want to talk about into this session is, based on my experience of doing this multiple times, what are the things that you need to get right? And when you get these things right, it's like making the gravity go away. So that means you can go further faster with less energy expelled, which is, I think, a win. I prefer doing less work and getting more results than doing loads of work and getting no results, right? And I've had both sides of the story. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about today. That's what I'm here. And by the way, guys, yeah, I'm a marketing guy. I'm a growth hacker. Like whenever people come to me to get marketing help, but I'm also a founder. Like, I've set up multiple businesses over the last few years, a travel business in university that didn't get many customers, then a mobile app game that we growth hacked to 20 million customers in 18 months. a mobile advertising company. I've got clients like Facebook, Snapchat, Unilever, Nike. We've raised millions of dollars and we're doing millions of revenue now, offices all around the world, and a growth hacking academy. And we've scaled across different continents with that now as well. So I do a ton of different stuff. And I've kind of, the only reason I share those stories is just to tell you, like, I'm not like a marketing consultant that just comes in and has never done that. It doesn't know what you're feeling. No, I really do know how you're feeling. I'm a founder first, an entrepreneur first, and a marketer second. But like the reality is I do both things. But I'm not just a consultant that comes in and says, oh, you should do this, but they've never done it before. You know, I'm not one of them, right? So what I really want to talk about is, first of all, here's the problem. Here's the problem if you don't know the right way to launch, right? And this, the topic of this session is really, you know, the growth accelerator, how to get those first 5,000 users, because I think there's something magical about 5,000, 10,000, either users, if you're looking to kind of scale a B2C thing, or like revenue, if you're looking for the revenue side. You know, you're able to start hiring team members, you're able to pay yourself well. Like it just, you make it to another level, and you've, more importantly, you've great validation in the market. Here's the problem if you don't know how to do it right. One, you launch and you don't get any customers. There's no worse feeling than when you launch and, you know, no customers come. I remember being in university and having an idea for a business and telling my university professor, I said, hey, I have this idea for a business. Like, what should I do? And he, like my university professor, who was a business professor, of course, he had never launched a business himself, said, oh, well, you have to write a business plan. You know, he knows. And I was like, okay. So I spent the next 9 months working with him. He mentored me writing this business plan. 9 months writing business plan, building a website. And 9 months later, I launched it, and guess what? No customers came. No customers. And it sucked. There's no worse feeling when you launch something and you don't get any customers, right? It absolutely sucks, right? But it's funny, like when I launch my businesses now, like the last 3 businesses I've launched, I've been able to bring it from 0 to 10,000 customers really fast, like in weeks. Okay, sometimes a week or 2, sometimes there's been 6 weeks, but like really, really fast. What's the difference between me now and me when, that old version of me when I was in university? Just share in the chat. What do you think is the difference between me now and me back then? Just share in the chat. Love you to just share in the chat. Yeah, Nicola, like experience. Okay. And guys, the reason I share that is like sometimes, like, it's not magic. It's not, you know, this, I don't know, like, you know, I got this $1 billion idea. No, I just know how to do it now. And I didn't know how to do it back then. And that for you should be encouraging, because all you need to do is learn how to do it. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then, so that's the first thing is when you launch, you have no customers if you don't know how to do it right. 2, if you don't know the right things to do, what happens is you end up doing everything. You're spinning plates. Like, guys, you're founders, you're marketers. There's so much stuff. There's always stuff to do. You're always doing stuff like, you know, do the social media posts, set up the email marketing campaign, get your website right, get your SEO, do some keyword analysis. Like, you never, there's a never ending list, never ending, right? And then you listen, you read one article in TechCrunch and then like, oh, I've got 3 new ideas. So it's not about doing everything at once, because you can't. Like, even if you had a team of 100 people, you still wouldn't get all your to-do list done. So one is, if you don't know how to do it right, you get no customers. The second is you end up doing everything, you end up burning out. And then what happens is you end up missing target. Okay, if you do the wrong things and you get burnt out, guess what? You're probably going to miss your target. And that's one of the key things. One of the big things that changed in my head was when I really deeply understood this concept of having a target. All right. And like, I know you understand that, but most people don't really understand it, because you guys are, for your business, you have a target. Okay. You have a target. Either you're looking to raise investment or you're looking to get profitable and earn revenue. Okay. Just share in the chat, which of those two are you going for? Because it's a different target you'll go after. Are you looking to raise investment, or are you looking to raise investment, or are you looking to what's called bootstrap, which is get self-funding, you know, earn your revenue through your customers? Please share in the chat. Which of those are you? A bootstrapper? I've done both. I've raised, you know, millions in investment for one business, and I'm bootstrapping my current business. So become profitable. Ah, nice. Earn something first. Yeah. Bootstrap. Yeah. And it's like, one is not better than the other, guys. I have a personal preference from like doing it both ways, but not as one is not better per se, but you just need to realize that they're different. Okay. And if you're looking to bootstrap, which seems like a lot of people here are, what is your target? Well, your target needs to be revenue based, because you can, on a spreadsheet, you can figure out how much money you need to make to be able to pay yourself, pay your bills, and pay your staff, and still have a bit of profit. Okay, you can do that on a spreadsheet. That's your target. You have a certain figure revenue. If you're looking to raise investment, what's your target? What do you think? If you're let's just say you wanted to raise €250,000 for your business, or €500,000. Like, how would you know what your target is? Does anyone have I know, like, what do you guys think? What do you guys have a guess in the chat? Any guesses? No? Okay, not sure. Yeah, no, that's cool. So, and it is like, it's not actually makes you think. You go, get a lot of customers. Well, like, how many customers? Because if you don't know what you're trying to achieve, how are you going to ever get there? Like, you know, otherwise it's guesswork. And if you're looking to raise investment, because like, it's a bit different with investors, because like, there's an investor, a venture capitalist, who has to decide whether to give you the money, right? And it's kind of down to their, like, on early stage investments, it's not really an equation. Sure, there might be some numbers involved, but it's not like it's not a straightforward equation like the profitability is. And really, you need to ask investors, what do you want to, like, I always used to ask a question really early on to investors for my last business that we raised investment straight off the bat, was, you know, what would you want to see in this company for you to just to have no questions about wanting to invest in it? And they tell you. For our case, to say, oh, well, we want to see like at least one signed contract with a Fortune 500 brand. Cool. So now I knew what my target was, and I knew if I did that, it's like playing a computer game, level unlock, you know. I knew if I did that, I would I'd be able to unlock the investment. So if you are considering the investment side, and you're actually the investment side of things, and you're unsure, just ask. I would ask about 10 investors, and you'll get a bit of a sense then what it is. So again, just recapping, if we don't know the right way to do this, here's the problem. One, we don't have any customers on launch, and that feeling sucks. Two, you end up doing everything and burning out. And three, you end up missing target and either not making the profit you want, or not getting investment. And that can only mean one thing, which is like, I know, and you know, is like the thing that keeps all founders up at night, which is having to go back and get a real job. Okay, like that's like the thing that keeps us all up awake at night, right? But here's the opportunity if we get this right. One, we get a steady stream of customers. We launch and we have rock solid confidence that we can just grow this thing. There are customers coming in, there's leads coming in every single week. Two, we're not doing everything at once. We're just doing the right things because of all the things that we have on our to-do list, there's a few things that are going to move the needle. Let's just do them. The other things that, you know, aren't going to move the needle, let's not do them. Okay, there's a few things that are the right things, and then that helps us hit target. Okay, and that ultimately then can lead us to success. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about today, and I want to start with 3 hot principles of, think of it like the 3 forces of gravity, okay, that you want to release. Okay, so number 1 is use the activators. Now, what do I mean by the activators? The activators are, imagine you were speaking to a venture capitalist, or let's just say a potential, you know, advisor or CEO came in, or kind of, you know, COO, seasoned Jeff Bezos. Let's say Jeff Bezos from Amazon came in to analyze your strategy. Okay, nice. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? I'm sure you'd have a few things to learn there. And he said to you, okay, I want to see your one-page plan. Okay, when you get external investors or external advisors, like, this is a common thing. Okay, now, so you've got a one-page marketing plan. Now, every good one-page marketing plan should start with 3 bullet points. These are what's called the 3 activators. And these are the things that will underpin the rest of your strategy. So these are essential for a proper, well thought out, and having a strategy, a launch plan that will work. If you don't have it, it's like having gravity holding you back. It's like having a blunted arrow. Okay, what do you think they are? Those 3 bullet points, what do you think they are? I'd love you to have a guess in the chat. Just share in the chat. I'd love everyone just to guess at least one guess. If there was 3 bullet points, just what's one of the bullet points that you would write down in the marketing plan? Okay, just share in the chat. Love you to have a few guesses. In the meantime, I'm going to source a light. It's gotten really dark just in the space of about 30 minutes. In the last 20 minutes, so I'm just getting a light. I'll be able to light up my face a little bit more in a second. Okay, so got some good ones coming in here. What, how, why? Nicola says, identify competitors. I've got some good ones. Keep them coming, guys. I see some good. Identify your target market, communicate channels. Yeah. So that's a really interesting one around channels, because what we need to do is these 3 activators need to come before the channels. Otherwise, choose our channels right. People need to like that. Okay, we've got some, I got some light as well. Nice. People needs, I like it. So guys, these are a good list. These are a really, really good list. Any more? Any more people needs? Yeah, how, what? Yeah. So these are what we call the 3 activators. And like I was saying, they're essential for a good, successful launch. So I saw one person got one of them. I think all of these things are good ideas, and like pretty much everything that people guessed and shared in the chat will be used somewhere on that marketing plan, but we just need to make sure how they connect together and what should go in first. So the first one, which is of the 3 activators, we want to make sure the 3 activators, the first of them is, I saw someone post in your target audience. Okay. absolutely essential that we have that super on point for our launch campaign, okay, or our scaling campaign, either or, right? So I work with a lot of accelerators around the world, and you know, a lot of fast growing businesses, as well as I work with like large corporates as well. And whenever I'm building out a campaign for them, one of the first questions I always ask them is, who's your target audience? What do you think is the single most common answer I get to that every single time, no matter where in the world I am? New York, Silicon Valley, Dubai, London. What do you think the single most common answer I get to that question is? Maybe you just share in the chat. What do you think? Yeah, Nicola. Yeah, the single most common answer I get is everyone. Everyone wants it, right? So what could be not ideal about that? What could be non-ideal about that? What problems would you start running into if you're launching and you've got a target market of everyone? Okay, and what we want to do is, these are the three activators. One is target. One is target market. What's the issue with having this as everyone? What problems might we encounter? Can you have a target market of everyone? Would there be any issues there? Just share in the chat. As you can see, I'm super interactive. I like to be as practical as possible. You lose money? Well, yeah, definitely. It's an issue with, you'll definitely have an issue when it comes to cost, because if you're trying to target everyone, that's going to be expensive. There's a lot of people out there. Also, you're not going to be able to optimize your channels, because all of the major ad platforms now, the way they work, they're all built on essentially auctions. Okay. And let's just pick a channel like Facebook or LinkedIn. The more someone's trying to target a certain type of person, the more expensive it gets, okay, in a simplistic term. And if you're targeting everyone at once, you might have one age group or type of person or job title of a person who is cheaper than others. And you're not getting the benefit of that because you're trying to target everyone at once. So that causes these kind of issues, okay? Dejan has a really good one. We can't satisfy everyone. Yeah, exactly. So the issue with these is that it really gets your messaging. It's not good from a messaging perspective. Okay, so your messaging will not be on point. And this is critical when you're thinking about really, you know, how you're going to start engaging your customers, right? Because you might all think you know who your competitor is, okay, or your competition is. You might know, like, you might have a name of a company. You might be go, oh yeah, that company from, like, whether it's the same country as you, or maybe they're based in France or England or wherever. You go, oh yeah, they're my competitor. And I disagree. I disagree. You might think you know who your competition is, but I don't think that is your competition. The real competition, the thing that you need to be worried about is this thing, okay? And this. And people doing this with a glazed look over their face. That's what I call the eternal flick. You know, when people are just like spaced out on their iPhone, flicking mindlessly through the screen, through the feed of whatever channel they're on, LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. And the thing what happens there is, in an average flicking session, and of course you would never do that. You guys would never do that. All those other people out there in the world would do that, right? You guys would never, you know, be spaced out mindlessly flicking for hours every week. But a lot of people in the world do. All right. And in an average flicking session, how many ads do you think people see when they're flicking on one of these devices on one of these channels? How many ads do you think they see? If anyone like to have a guess? How many ads? 3 per minute. Yeah, I think the scientific term, scientific is a lot. All right. There is a stat that people see 3,000 ads a day now. I'm sure that's correct. I don't know. But I think that, like, we all agree, a lot. All right. And the reality is that in an average flicking session, people are flicking along and they see tons of ads. How many do they click on? Not many. How many do they remember? Even fewer. And that's what we're up against. I believe your biggest competition is not your competitor, the name of the, like, don't get me wrong, you need to know about them, but your biggest competition is being boring and being ignored. All right. And that's what you're up against, because most companies I see, their stuff is just bland and no one clicks on it. No one remembers it. It doesn't get people to take action. And people, when your target customer, let's just say whoever it is, job title somewhere, or a customer of some description, when they see it, they ignore it. Doesn't make an impact on them, because if it does, this is what can happen. Again, the iPhone again, flicking along. This happens sometimes, okay? And then you do this thing here where you reverse flick. I call it reverse flickage. And you reverse back the feed back to you flicks by something and then you saw something that caught your eye. Why did that catch your eye? Because it spoke to you. It's something that you're thinking of, or maybe you couldn't sleep last night because there was something on your mind, and boom, here it is the next day on your feed. The answer to your problems. You're like, boom. That's when people, their eyes go big, they get their finger and they tap and they click on the ad or the message or the piece of content, whatever it is, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter. Okay. And that's hard. And if you have that in place, and you only can do that by having a super defined, well thought out target audience, and you know exactly what's going on in their head. You know what kept them up last night. All right. Otherwise, you're just going to have some kind of like bland message that's a bit, boring, and no one will really, you won't get great cut through with it. Okay. So the first step is to get this really, really defined target audience. Okay. That is the first thing that we need to get super focused on. Okay. So I suppose the question is then, how do you do it? Okay. How do you get a really well defined target audience? Well, I think, like, quick question, is there many B2B or B2C people here? Are you B2B or B2C? B2B, business to business, or B2C? Just share in the chat, please. Are you B2B, B2B, B2C? Okay, cool. All right, nice. Good to know. Good to know. B2B. B2B. Okay, cool. Majority B2B, but some B2C as well. So the first step of going from kind of having this bland Me Too audience to having something that really, like, resonates, we want to get dialed into who this target customer is, right? So this is going to be a really practical session, all right? And we're going to do stuff live together, because I don't want to, like, leave you with homework. It's Friday. You're not going to do homework over the weekend. So I want us to do stuff in the session together, right? And I'm going to, like, give you some stuff to work on. So what we want is we want to get dialed in who this target customer is, because when we do, then we can start figuring out what's going on in their head. Okay, so what is this? Who is this person? Well, we'll start with some demographics. What city are they in? Okay. What's their job title? Okay, so let's start there. And once we have that, we're going to do a little exercise together where I'm going to ask you to share, to kind of like draw something on a piece of paper wherever you are, and then share it in the chat. But I just want to make this hyper relevant for everyone, all right? Because there's a lot of B2B people here, business to business, who are selling to businesses. And every single time I get a question, but I always hear like, well, how does this work for B2B, right? How do I get a target customer for B2B? Because I'm selling to businesses, I'm selling to corporate, I'm selling to small businesses. Okay, so I just want to like address that because I remember when I was launching my advertising business a few years ago. It's a business called Adludio, mobile advertising business. And myself and my friend Andy, my co-founder Andy, had invented this new type of interactive graphic technology that it sits on top of HTML5 and does this cool interactive stuff. I won't get too nerdy, but anyway, we invented this thing and we kind of figured like, what would this be good for? And we thought, well, it makes like visuals on mobile really pop, and it like does cool things like it connects with the accelerometer and makes your phone vibrate and all this cool stuff. So we thought like the natural thing we kind of started gravitating to was this would be good in advertising, because it makes the ads really pop. And then we thought, okay, so will we try and sell it to advertisers? Okay, cool. And then we thought like, which advertisers will we, and we used a very advanced research technique and analysis technique, which was we picked the people with the most money. All right. So we kind of figured, okay, who does the most advertising? Who has the most money? And we figured big brands like Nike and Unilever and Procter and Gamble and Red Bull and all these kind of guys. So we said, okay, cool, let's sell it to them, right? You know, very advanced like entrepreneurship thinking here. So I went to London. I'm from Ireland. I'm not from London. I didn't have a big, you know, contact base in London. A lot of you guys are looking to get customers internationally, and like you might not know the people from there. I was in the same boat, and I hit the streets of London and I started trying to get meetings with people. And I was essentially trying to meet anyone that worked in a brand or anyone that worked in an agency that represented a brand. And there's loads of different agencies, types of agencies, media agencies and creative agencies and integrated agencies and digital agencies, tons of them. And all of them have thousands of people that work in them. So I think like that was my target audience initially. And I went out and started meeting them. And there was a lot of people, and there was one of me, and I was having a load of meetings because I was quite good at like, you know, meeting someone and then asking them to introduce me to someone else and all that kind of hustle stuff. You know what I mean? And I started getting a lot of meetings every day, every week. I was having like, you know, 5, 6, 7 meetings a day all around London, and I was exhausted. Every weekend I was like, oh, and I was pitching, and everyone liked what we had. Everyone said, this is cool. I could imagine it here. I could imagine it here. They all liked it. No one, very rarely does someone say, I think that's a really bad idea. I don't want to buy it. Like, you know, like very rarely people say that. So here we were. I was having loads of meetings, but there was a problem. We looked at our revenue after the first month or two of doing this, and it was not good. And we'd already raised some investment at this point, and investors like to see results. And they don't like slow results. They like results. Right? And that was not what the problem. And so anyway, I knew something had to change. And I took a step back. I stopped doing what I was doing because I had enough data to tell me it wasn't working. I stopped and I re-looked at what we had and what we were doing, our approach. And I got some advice external, an expert in the industry to help me. And he advised me, it was interesting. We got some external advice that of all of the different agencies in the market, you know, these creative and digital and integrated, there's lots of different types of agencies. There was actually only one type of agency that could buy what we had. Everyone else liked it and they were excited about it because it kind of involved them, but only one had the authority to like sign us a check and buy it. Okay. And an average like deal size for us was about $25,000, say approximately, or euro, I mean. Okay. So we were told, oh, none of those other agencies, no, they can't buy it. There's only this one type of agency that can buy it. And that's called a media agency. That's not important to you, but it's just like to emphasize this story. It's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then as we went further, we could have stopped there. As we looked up how many of those agencies there were in London, there was 12 agencies of those agencies. These are all international agencies like LV and MediaCom and people like that. So that was a good start. We've already kind of like focused in our market a bit more. But the challenge even with that is in these agencies, there's like 10,000 people working in them, and even in London. So now I've still got the same issue. I have so many people to meet. And that's where we got some more advice, some different advice. Well, there's only one person's job title that can buy what you got. Everyone else will like it. Everyone will think it's great. But there's only one person whose job title it is to purchase that and can write you a check for it. And that's called an account director. I was like, oh, never knew that. No one ever told me, right? And now, I looked up on LinkedIn. I said, like, okay, how many of them are there in these companies? And I found there was 12 directors in these companies, and sorry, there was 10 account directors in each one of these agencies, and there was 12 of the agencies we were looking for. So we went from a potential market of a few, maybe 100,000 people I had to meet, and one of me, to 10 agencies with 12 agencies with 10 people I wanted to meet in each agency. A total of 120 people. Definitely more achievable for one-man salesperson, one person sales team, which was me. Definitely attainable. So what's the moral of the story? Well, I changed after we learned that. I changed my strategy, and we went from I stopped talking to everybody. I just want to focus on those people. And a funny thing happened. A strange thing happened. I went from having lots of meetings to fewer meetings. I wasn't having that many meetings every week. I was having maybe 4 or 5 meetings a week, but they were with the right people. And my sales started going up and I started making sales. So I went from having loads of meetings with no sales to having fewer meetings with lots of sales. Okay. Again, moral of the story is 1, if you're in the B2B space, the biggest mistake people make with this target market stuff is they go, oh, who's my customer? Corporates. Who's my customer? Small businesses. Who's my customer? Industrial firms, engineering firms, whatever. But the thing is, businesses don't buy things. If you think about it, businesses are just like on a thing on a piece of paper. Like there's no entity. I couldn't like speak to a business. No, you speak to the person that works in the business. So there's still people. There's a person within the business who's your target audience, not the business itself. And if you get the wrong person, you're not going to get the conversion. So it's hyper important that you get that right person, the decision maker, essentially. Because if you're speaking to people that aren't the decision maker, they're not going to buy it. And I see that happen all the time. People think they're having a good meeting with someone from a company that, you know, they think is a good fit, but the person doesn't have any authority to buy the thing. They're never going to buy it. Okay. So what we want to do is, in this target audience that we're doing, we want to get super hyper focused on that to make sure our target audience is super on point. Okay. So everyone, get your piece of paper, and I want you to share in, if you're in the B2B space, share in the location, the industry, and the job title of your target customer. If you're in the B2C space, your business is straight to consumer, write in the location and the key interests of your target customer and the age. Okay, so I'd love you to share in the chat. Again, if you're B2C, location, age, and interests. If you're B2B, I want location, industry, and job title. Okay, these are the 3 most important parts of that target audience. And then I'll share with you a tool, once you've done that, I like to use to get in front of these people. Okay. All right, so just share it in the chat, please. Nice. Nicola, US marketing manager, like it. Yes, that's super good, because using something like marketing manager, especially in certain locations, you'll really be able to, using something like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, you'll really be able to start building good target lists, very specific. So Nicola, just some feedback on yours. The thing I do to go a bit further with yours is to figure out the company size, because that's something LinkedIn is very good at filtering by, is company size. Particularly, it's hard to say by revenue, but you can kind of guess that by the number of employees. So, you know, is it 0 to 20 employees, or 20 to 100, or 100 plus? And that will even give you an even better target list. Well done, well done. Some good stuff coming through. Milos, location, world, industry, human resource, HR managers. Milos, I would, you know, I'll challenge you on that, because that is a bit like, you might say, yeah, sure, maybe it's the world. It could be, but certain countries, if you had 10 conversations with 10 HR managers, 10 different types of countries, some will convert better than others. And this is the whole thing. It's not that like others won't buy it, but like, are you you say world, so are you going to go for the Philippines? Are you going to go for North Korea? No, you're probably not, right? So there's probably certain countries will be the better fit. Of course, I'm not saying that it's not a fit at all, but that's the whole thing. The world is big. It's best to prioritize to the best ones. So my guess is, you know, you're probably, I don't know, but like one way you might filter that is I want to go for ones that have good spending power, and have, you know, that have certain type of HR laws, or culture. You know, that's just a guess. I don't know what your product is, but that's good. Alexander, interest, gadgets, indoor gardening, and innovations, like that. That's good. That's good. I like it. Location, Serbia, Europe, and China. Industry, gaming. No, I like that. That's good. Some good stuff here, guys. I like it. Some really nice and focused. Cool. All right. So just to make this as super practical, once you have this, what do you do with it? How do you kind of go from, okay, these are the type of people I'm looking for, but how do I like get in front of them? Okay, because I want to make this super practical today. Really how we go from that to getting in front of them. I'll start with B2B and then I'll give you some B2C stuff as well, because I know like both it'll be relevant for both of you. So let's go back to my example. When I was in London and I had this idea for, I was trying to get in front of these advertising people and I was going out for meetings and all the rest of it. Like once I had my list of people at the agencies, how do you go from, if you once I knew that information, who I should be targeting, what did I do? Because it always annoys me when I'm speaking to someone and someone just says, "Oh, just go and speak to those people," and I'm like, "Okay." And then I go like, "But how do I have a meeting with these people?" Like, there's always a disconnection in people's advice. They just say, "Oh, go and meet those brands," and then I go, "Well, how do I do that?" And I want to be as really practical as I can here. So imagine it's Monday morning and we're sitting down in front of our computer and we go, okay, so I understand what Howard said. I want to meet some of my target customers. Like really practically, what are the practical steps from you to go from knowing you want to do it to it happening and you having a meeting, probably a virtual meeting in today's world? What are the steps? Any ideas? I'd love you to, because chances are you've kind of like played around with this. I'd love any ideas you have to come into the chat and like we can kind of brainstorm on this, because I have my approach, but like I'm sure you guys have some good ideas too. So the first thing, like literally, and this is why I want to be super practical, the first step I'll do is I'll open up a spreadsheet. Okay, before I do anything else, I'll open up a spreadsheet, because the thing with marketing and sales and business development and stuff like that, it can get really messy really, really quickly, especially when you're meeting like, who was it that said here, Dejan is targeting CTOs in Serbia, Europe, and China. Like that can get like, a week or two of doing that, and all of a sudden you've scraps of paper and notebooks everywhere, and like, you forget about this person and all this kind of stuff, right? So the first thing I will do is I'll open up a spreadsheet and I'll call it my business development target list, all right? My master target list. And I'll do this. I'll go. So a spreadsheet looks a little bit like this, doesn't it? That's why I like a spreadsheet. It's got rows and it's nice and organized. And I'll start writing things across the top. I'll say name, job title, industry, maybe city, company name. Okay. So that's the first thing I'll do, all right? Now, once we have that done, now we're going to play a game. And I like games. Games are fun. The game I'm going to play is, I'm going to play the game, let's fill in the squares. Okay? Because what I'll want is, I want to set myself a list of, I want to create a list, target list, maybe about 50 people. Okay? What I don't want to do, you see, is get one name of one person, go off and try and hunt them, and then start looking up another person, go off and hunt them. No, I want to get all the people onto a list, and then I want to prioritize which I think are the best ones, and then focus there first. Can you see how that might save you a lot of time in the long term? And also it will mean you're spending the time on the right people, rather than kind of, just being a bit like scattergun. So the first thing I'll do is I'll open up a spreadsheet. I get a list of 50 people. I'll do that through LinkedIn. I think someone guessed that. I'll open up LinkedIn. I can just search by company names or industry or job title in certain cities, and they'll start coming up, and I can look at them and go, oh, that's in spreadsheet. So John or whatever, and I start filling them out. And it might take me an hour. You know, like an hour, you probably have that done. And now that's your target list. And you don't need to go after, you know, you don't need to keep on going back to LinkedIn all the time. So that's the first thing I'll do. Then what's the second thing I'll do? Well, next thing I'll prioritize. I have my list of 50, I'll prioritize. And that might be depending on your strategy. Maybe there's certain types of brands that you know are the best fit, or, you know, make the most innovative, or certain ones that you think that you know have a bigger need than others, etc. Okay, that would be one way to filter it based on kind of like strategic fit. But also, and this is where this column here will put connection. Because if you happen to know somebody in that company, or you're connected to somebody on LinkedIn that knows this person, well, guess what? You're probably going to have a better chance of getting in there than reaching out cold. Okay. So there's usually in a list of 50, you might have 10 people that you have like a bit of a second degree connection with, right? You know, I'm connected to somebody that knows that person. And I'll write those in. So now I have my priority list that I'm going to start with first. Why am I starting with them is, well, they're a good strategic fit, and the action I take, the energy I take to spend time with these, chance of paying off, right? That's why we want to do this, because I obviously want to spend my time on the things that will get me the results fastest. Okay. So, but guess what? That's hard to scale, because you're going to have maybe a 10 on that list. You've still got 40 that you don't. So what do you do then with the 40 that you don't have a contact, you know, connection with? Okay. Now, a few options there. You can try calling them. And if they're a small business, that might work. If they're a large business, like a corporate, let's just say you're trying to get through to someone at Nike or Apple Computers or Dell, like good luck calling them. You can, it's never worked for me, because they have people in those companies they pay a lot of money to not put you through. They're called receptionists, they're called secretaries, they're called, you know, they're gatekeepers, and it's hard to get through. Like just ringing up and say, hey, can I speak to Howard, please? Sure. What's the call about? You know, like it's possible, but I found better success other ways. So what are the other ways? If you can't get through by phone, what are you going to do? Okay. You got some options. One is LinkedIn messaging. Now, my experience of LinkedIn messaging is that it is not as effective as another channel. Okay. Why? Because you need to understand, guys, how often do you check LinkedIn? Now, I always get one person on the call that says every day, but most of you don't. I don't. And it's just like whatever about this, like, you know, you might be this one person who said every day might be the one person. But like the fact is, on the platform, people log in on average once a week. Okay, on average. So you need to understand that. And like most of you on the call will probably nod their heads and go, yeah, I do too. And I do as well. I log in maybe once a week. Your customers do too, and like they get how many messages in that time, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So LinkedIn, although worth a try, it's not my first go-to. My first go-to will always be email. Why? Guys, how many times do you check your email every day? Like, you know, like most people check it too many times. It's not as if like they might only check it once a day. They usually check like they know they've got some kind of addiction problem, right? You know, so like, why not go there? Why not go to the place that you know people are like checking multiple times a day? Okay, so if you're going to do that, I suppose the next question is, well, I need their email address. So let's talk about how to get their email address, because you've got this list. And the last column I'm going to add in here is email. Okay, email. So let's figure out, the question is then, how do you get their email address? So let's have a look, shall we? So there's a few different tools we can use. Okay, you may know some of the which is me go to for the last few years. I use a few different ones, but this is if you don't know this tool already, you're all going to love it. It's a great tool called hunter.io. Okay, and allows you to find email addresses of anyone. Now, this is incredibly useful if you've got a list of target business customers that you want to find their email addresses for. Okay. And by the way, if you're not trying to target businesses, let's say you're a B2C, I know there's one B2C person on this call at least, you can use this for targeting journalists. You can use this for targeting influencers. You can use this for targeting partners for business development reasons. You can use this for targeting investors. Okay. Like you're always, like everyone in the world of commercial anything is having to try and find email addresses. Okay, it's just one of those things. And this is the best tool on the market that I know about for this. There's other ones we use for other things. So let's just say I mentioned Dell computers earlier. So let's just say on my list, one of the people I want to target was Dell computers, because I read an article saying they had it, like they were on the lookout for some kind of product, and that was to Hunter, and I type in the word Dell. Okay, and can you see here that Dell pops up? Okay, and I click on it. Cool, and now this comes up. Okay, and what it has is it has a load of email addresses from Dell. Obviously, these are not the people I want to email. Okay, but that isn't the point. The point is that this thing here, it says most common pattern. That's what I'm looking for. Because what we need to know is at these companies, you know this, once you know, like, you know this, your email address is the same pattern or format than everyone else in your company. Usually like first name at companyname.com or first name.second name at companyname.com. You get the picture. Well, once you know what one person's email address is in that company, most of the time, 95% of the time, everyone else's email address in the company is the same. So now using hunter.io, I can take this information, first name underscore last name at dell.com, and then I can flick back to my doing. And now we can start putting in first name underscore second name of this person's name here. Can you see what I'm doing here? And the spreadsheet so far had taken you about an hour to put together those 50 people, maybe another 10 minutes to prioritize. Now putting in the email addresses take you maybe another 30 minutes. You can even have a team member to do it if you've got like some assistants or something like that. Or you do it yourself if you just want it done fast, whatever. And then that's done. Now you have your target list. Okay. So guys, what we've just been talking about so far is really practically why it's so important to have that first activator, which is having a great target, a very clear target market. And how do you go from having that, some people talk about personas and target markets without really connecting the dots, why it's useful and why it's so important. Otherwise, you'll speak to the wrong people, you won't get sales. And then also how to get in front of those people. Okay, is this making sense so far? Cool, so I just love to check in with everyone. What has been most useful so far? So I want to be as super kind of practical and give as much value as I can for you guys. Okay, what has been most useful so far? Yeah, I was just asking, so what we've been talking about so far is really how to think about your target market, why it's so important, but also how to connect the dots so you go from having a target market through to, you know, getting in front of a customer. I'd love to know what has been most useful from that. What has been most useful from what we've just been talking about for you? What has been most useful? Was it the tools? Everyone loves a good tool. Is it just the systematic approach? Love to know from you what was most useful. So Alexander, so I suppose that the question for you is because I've connected the dots, how you would, I've specifically talked about if you're B2C, this is what you do. So from your perspective, how would you use those tools for what you're doing? Because it's all about I specifically say Hunter.io is great for B2B, but it's also great for B2C if you're reaching out to journalists, reaching out for business development partnership deals, which every B2C company does. So it's all about kind of taking this strategy and kind of seeing how you can use it. And I think it's one of those things that yeah, whether you're scale up or startup, you're going to be using tools like that, right? You should be. Anyway, great. So Milos says, idea how to find decision makers in the company and the granularity, just step by step. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Just get really, really practical on it. Drago says the last thing about Hunter as a single tool. Yeah, because I want to kind of talk about as many tools so they're super practical as possible. And love their approach. Awesome. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, cool. Okay, so that is what we've just been talking about is the first of the activators, okay, for that world-class level marketing, one-page marketing plan, okay? Now, what I want to talk about next, which is the next activator, is as follows, okay? So I remember reading a book a few years ago called What They Don't Teach You in Harvard Business School. Okay. And it's one of those but sometimes you read something and it just has a huge impression on you and you're like, wow. And, I read something and this just changed everything for me. And it was about a study that took place in Harvard Business School about 30 years ago. In 1979, a group of researchers went into Business School and they researched the group of the MBA class, which at the time was the highest performing people in the world. Okay, this was the number one class everyone wanted to get into. So the best of the best. And they went in and they researched these people, and what they wanted to do was they wanted to really analyze what made these people so successful, right? What was their habits? What was their behaviors? What were they doing? And specifically, they knew in the class, so there was about 100, 120 people in the class, they knew there'd be some people in that classroom that would outperform the rest of the class. So these were the elite of the elite, like the Navy SEALs or whatever, right? And they wanted to analyze that. So they spent a year with them, tracking their habits, behaviors, all this good stuff. And then they came back 10 years later. They tracked their progress. And 10 years later, they had a look at who was the most successful from that group. Okay. And they found something interesting. They found there was 3% of that classroom that were outperforming the rest of the class considerably. And when they went back to the notes from 1979, they found that those three people, the 3%, all had a similar habit or trait, okay, than the rest did. What do you think it was? What do you think it was? So I remember when I was reading those few years ago, I just I never knew this. I was like, wow. What do you think it was? Prestige of being a Harvard. Well, they were all Harvard graduates, you see. Can you see how there was, why do 3% of Harvard MBAs, that like all of them were Harvard MBAs, the 100% was Harvard MBAs, but yeah, I'm sure that helped. You know, it's definitely an advantage. Discipline, I like that, Milos. Yeah, I think discipline is so important. It's one of those things that's a bit underrated, like thinking different, Dejan. Yeah, I like that. So guys, these are all great ideas. And you know what? I actually think you're all in the right areas, because like these things like implementation of knowledge, discipline, thinking differently, I think you had to, like everyone in the class had to have that probably to get into the class, because it's so competitive even to get into the class. But what this specific study was, of all those people that got into the class, what separated the best of them from the rest? And it was interesting. I remember reading this and it just blew my mind. The answer was all about having a clear goal and a clear plan how to achieve it. Okay, some of the people in the class, you know, most of them didn't really have a plan. Some of the people in the class had a bit of a loose plan. They had it in their head, but they hadn't really kind of like, you know, really systematically planned out how to achieve it. But the 3% that were the highest performers, when the researchers went back and looked at that data, they found that 3% had very clear goals and they had made a very clear plan how to achieve it. Okay, they had done something called backwards planning, which is something which is used in the military, which I'll talk about in a moment. Okay, and those 3% had really clear written goals and a plan how to achieve it. Okay, so anyway, I remember kind of reading this and going like, just really blowing my mind. And it was like, okay, so something, you know, something like that can have such a big impact. And it made me think, because most of the time people are quite bad at setting clear goals and plans. Okay, now what they're very good at is making clear goals and plans for things that are short term and less important. So let me give an example. Who, you know, have any of you gone on holidays in the last year? Okay, maybe 18 months, because COVID came in 2020, so you weren't traveling as much, but you probably went somewhere nice on holidays. Okay, so I was lucky. I went to Vietnam in February. Okay, just before, like literally, they were starting to put masks on in Vietnam while I was still there. And I thought, like, that's crazy. And then by the time I flew back, everything was locking down in Europe. So I literally just got back. Now, why did I go to Vietnam? Okay, well, I went to Vietnam. I chose it because it had good weather, good food, and it was a place that I wanted to go to for a few different reasons. Okay, then think about it. Think about your last trip. Once you chose somewhere to go to, your end goal, your end like journey, how did you plan how you are now to there? Well, what you did was you probably chose, okay, I've chosen Vietnam. It has all the things I want to, and I can kind of get there. Then you work backwards from that. In my case, I went, okay, let's go. Will we go to Vietnam? Let's check out if I can get there on time in budget. So I went to something like Skyscanner, and I went to Skyscanner and I checked the flights. And I said, great, I can get there on that flight on time in budget. Then I went, okay, how do I get to the airport? And I checked the train times and all the rest. Okay. I didn't do it from the place, you know what I mean? I didn't do it that way. I went backwards. And that's what this backwards planning thing is. And military do it. That's how they plan all their strategies. So humans are very good. We, you, me, we're all very good at doing that. We do that all the time for small things like small projects like holidays, but we're really bad at doing it for the big things like our life, like our $1 million business to be, which you're currently growing. We're not doing that. All right. So why? Because like, guess what? You know, we would never kind of go, okay, I've got a week's holidays. I'm just going to like hop on a train, random train, and see like that looks nice and see where it takes me. Well, you might once, but you'd probably afterwards go, you know what, I'm probably better off picking a place that I want to go to, because then I've got better chances that it'll be where I like, or what's good for me. Okay, so cut a long story short, what we need to do is we want to get like the 3%. And there's no better time for that this time of year, because, you know, there's a time we're coming to the end of the year, end of 2020. For most people, it's been an interesting year. Like either it's been a good year or a bad year, but it's impacted you somehow. I know that for a fact. 2021, there's a clean slate and we can make a good go with 2021. So let's plan it like the 3% planet. And that's the way you should be planning your company objectives. You can do this for personal as well, but I just want to talk about this for your company, your startup. So let's do this together. So how do we create a good goal then? Well, what we want to do is we want to create a goal for the end of 2021. So imagine you and I are on a Zoom call again at the end of 2021. Okay. Where would you like to be in your company at the end of 2021? Now, I always talk about what I call conversion categories. Conversion categories are number of sales, like number of customers, say, and amount of revenue. Okay. So let's take a moment, and you know, the best time to plan these things for the year is around now. So let's do that together. So you come away like off this session and you're like the 3%. Okay. So I'm going to put a minute on the clock, and I want you to set your goal for 2021 for your company. Okay. Now, there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. Okay. Now, the wrong way is as follows. The wrong way is just to have some kind of like big generic goal, such as I want to be successful. I want to scale. I want to have a brand recognition. I want to get customers. I want it to be a success. That's not a good goal. Why? Because it's not specific. You can't measure it. Is it attainable? Well, I don't really know what it is. Is it relevant? Sounds relevant, but I don't even know what it is, and there's a time bound. Okay, that's what's called SMART goals. Okay, now you may have one or two of you on the session will have heard of SMART goals, but I never assume that you have or haven't. So if you haven't heard of a SMART goal, what is a SMART goal? A SMART goal is as follows. SMART goal is as SMART. Okay. S stands for specific. A very specific thing, not a general thing, not like I want us to be successful. No, it's not specific. It needs to be measurable. Now, numbers are really good here. This is where like KPIs come in, all right? But I just want you to have one core number. I want you to be super specific here on a number that you can measure, like number of customers and number of amount of revenue are really good, especially for if you're like bootstrappers and wanting to get profitable. Okay. Or it could be like a product launch, like your app in the app store. That's specific and measurable. That's okay. Like, you know, it needs to be something objective. Someone from the street come in and say yes or no to, not something like generic. Okay, attainable. Like, is it realistic you're going to be able to do it? Like, I remember one time having someone, I was chatting, a client I was bringing this through, setting her goals with, and her goal was to get 1 million users for her app in, like, it was 30 days or 40 days or something. And I said, okay, like, that's not right or wrong yet. And I was like, okay, do you have any marketing budget? And she was like, no. Like, okay. So ambitious, yes. Attainable, maybe, but probably not. Like, if you don't have any marketing budget, you haven't launched your business yet, and you're like, are you going to hit 1 million customers? Like, don't get me wrong, there's a small chance, but you don't want to set yourself up for failure of your goal. Like, if she had a big marketing budget, of course she can hit 1 million users. Of course you can. But with no marketing budget and no customers right now, I said that wasn't, like, I would prefer you to have a more attainable goal. that can still be ambitious, but like not a million, right? Relevant, just something that's like relevant to your company goals, and time bound. Now, the great thing about having a goal for 2021, it's kind of baked into it. Your goal by the end of 2021 is to have XYZ. Okay. So guys, what I want you to do is I don't want to set you homework. I want you to do this now. It'll take you a minute. And I want you to come away from this session like the 3% with a very, very clear, clear goal for 2021. Okay. That's a SMART goal. So please do share in the chat. I'd love you to share in the chat what your goal is. Jovan, revenue covering 70% of expenses. I like that. Cool, that's very clear. Alexander, to have 5,000 new customers in 2021. I like that. Very specific, it's measurable, sounds attainable, sounds relevant. What about the rest of you guys? What about the rest of you guys? Rest of you guys, Dejan, Milos, Alexander. I know you've already put yours. Drago, Server, Fedra, Rebecca, Nicola. What about the rest of you guys? What's your goals? Like, so this kind of stuff should, like, this is the kind of thing that you should really get you really excited about 2021, because guys, this is the cool thing about being an entrepreneur. Is this goal doable or not? Well, guess what? The person who's going to make or break it is you. And the difference from you being able to do it and you not doing it is, one, the action you take, and two, you learning how to do it. And I love that. Like, that gets me, as an entrepreneur, that gets me excited every day, because that's the thing that like drives me forward. I have to keep on getting better. I have to keep learning stuff. And it should you too. Like, having that goal that seems a little bit outside your range, that you have to push yourself for. You're going to have to like do a course or do something more to learn that new skill to get there, or hire that person, read those books. Like, I don't know about you, that's the thing that like gets me up out of bed. And like when the times are tough and like, you know, COVID's hit and all your business goes and you're going, why am I doing this? Why am I not just got a job? Like, my friends are just like on, you know, furlough or whatever, not working and getting paid. Like, this is the stuff that drives you forward, right? Pushes you. Okay. Some good ones coming in here, guys. I like it. Dejan, to become self-sustainable by taking 20 companies from our competitors. Oh, tasty. I like that. Nicola, to have minimum 10 enterprise clients. Yeah, that'd be big. Drago says to have more than one customer a month, and to Milos commercialize the product. Well, Milos, is that a SMART goal? What do you guys think? Is that a SMART goal, Milos? Oh, here we go. He follows up with a SMART goal. I missed it. To get more than 100 customers, build a sales team, develop the right new product modules. Dude, that's super good. Cool. Okay, guys. So what we've done is we've just kind of set ourselves a goal. What I would do and what I do is I get that goal. I'll be spending some good time over Christmas and New Year planning my SMART goals for my company and my personal life in 2021. And I'll print it out and I'll put it beside my desk, because every day as a founder, you're pulled in so many different ways. Go to this conference, do this thing, look at this webinar. And you got to have some kind of North Star that always, like, in times are tough, when you're tired, you've got 10 things you got to do. Which is going to bring you closer to this thing that you've written down today? And that's always your guiding North Star. Okay. I do, by the way, if you want to spend more time with me planning out your goals for 2021, every year between Christmas and New Year, I've got quite a deep process for strategic planning, for goal planning, setting your 5-year game plan and your 1-year game plan. And anyone that's ever been on a webinar with me, I send an invite out to everybody, and I do it for free. Okay, so I have a free session that I do between Christmas and New Year. I'm also doing it in January this time over a couple of days. Just go to howardkingston.com and just sign up for my email list. Like, you can get the free ebook and you'll get a free invite. Okay, and it's completely complimentary. I don't charge anything for it. It is packed full of value. People come back to me and say it made their year. So anyway, just no pressure. Like, if you do want to go into this bit a bit deeper, there's an offer to all of you guys. Okay. Cool. Yeah, you can actually, I'm on Facebook as well. Facebook Kingston, and just message me and I'll send you a link to it. It's all good. Okay, so guys, what we've been talking about so far is we've been going through like the forces of gravity to release, and we've been talking about what are the most important things that we need to do. One is we're thinking about those 3 bullet points, the forces, the activators. 1, that getting that target market. What are some of the tools we can use to reach out to people? 2, how do we be like the 3% of people in Harvard and get super focused and having a goal for 2021. Okay, so we're going to move on to the third in just a sec. But what I want to do is, I'm just kind of conscious that, you know, 3 hours on Zoom can be time. So I want to make sure that everyone's energy is up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a quick break in case you need to get a cup of tea, go to the bathroom, grab a drink of water. I think it's really important just to step away from the screen for a few minutes, just to come back, and then we'll hit the last bit with full energy levels. Okay, so what we'll do is, it is currently 17:35. I'm going to be back here at 17:45 on the dot. I always start bang on, and we'll cover the last part after a 10-minute break, just so if you need to get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, get a cup of tea or whatever it is. Okay, does everyone understand? Just give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. If you know what's happening. Sure, great. Okay, great. Okay, so I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. See you then. Okay, so what is the last thing that we want to cover today about the activators? Well, we've been, what are the 3 activators of a good launch plan? Okay, what are the 3 activators? And we just fly it here. We talked about target audience, didn't we? And how important that is. Just flicking back up here, we saw target market. The second is goal. Having a clear objective, a clearly defined objective. Otherwise, how do we know what channels we should use? Because we don't know if those channels will suffice in getting us to the goal. And then there's one third activator, this one here. Okay, now no one's guessed it yet, but I'll tell you what it is. The last is having a clear message. Because your clear message is looking for, okay? And that's how good messaging works. A good message really speaks right into the conversation that's already taking place in the mind of your customer, okay? Not just some generic, get more, you know, grow faster, you know, it needs to be something that really talks to your target market, okay? Now, this is a really common problem. I work with a lot of accelerators, and when I go and meet them, this is all over London, Silicon Valley, wherever, I speak to them, and the thing that they get really bad, like they don't do well, is how they communicate their product to their customers. Okay, why? Well, you know what? Like, it's different. Like, you guys on this session, and these other people I'm talking about as well, you know, you're creating new products that have never existed before, that are world changing, that are creating impact, and they haven't existed before. So it's hard to describe something that didn't exist. Whereas, you know, if you're opening like a hairdresser or a coffee shop, you could, you know, someone says, what's your business? You say, it's a coffee shop. It's on the corner, and everyone knows what it is, right? It's pretty easy. Whereas when it's, you know, some like new platform that connects, you know, something with another using AI and all this kind of stuff, like, you know, it's hard to describe. And most founders don't do it very well as that, for that reason. And this is the problem that creates, right? What happens is this. Let's just say we were at a networking event. Let's just say we were, okay, for pretend. And we were on a break and we went over and we were mingling. And it was some kind of like tech event. And we were talking to someone. And, you know, like within a minute, you know what they're going to ask you. Like, you know, before anything else, they'll ask you, what do you do? What's your business? Okay. And you've got about 30 seconds, maybe less, 15 seconds to make an impression. Because you'll have an opportunity to say something to them and you don't know who they are. They could be an investor. They could be like the partner you've been trying to get in front of for a year. They could be married to the partner that you've been trying to get in front of the year for the year. They could be a journalist for TechCrunch. You don't know what they are. So it's like launching a business is hard. You need all those opportunities to work for you. Okay. So what happens a lot of the time is this with founders is you've got this complicated product. Someone says, what do you do? And they say something that goes a little bit like this. It's a platform for connecting buyers with sellers using AI, right? Like what the person who's listening to that, like, you know, their face goes a little bit like this. So have you come very far today? Or what did you think about the event? Or have you tried the sandwiches on offer tonight? Right? You know that happens so often. You've done it to people and people have done it to you. Now, this is the important point, and I really want this to land with you because I know for a fact this is an issue for a lot of you. The issue here is that, and this is what I want to introduce, something called a paradigm shift to you. What's a paradigm shift? A paradigm shift is when you get a new piece of information and you see the world in a new way forever. You know, you can't, you know, your life has changed after it. So hopefully this is a paradigm shift for you. That if someone asks what you do and you tell them, and they change the subject, and they do not go, "Ooh, that's interesting," or, "Ooh, tell me more," you have failed. Okay? You have failed. Because the way communication works is if you communicate certain things, you will elicit a response from the other person. Okay? Let me give you an example. If someone says, what do you do? And you said something different, you would get a different response. Okay? So if you say something really interesting, like, you know, like we've invented this new technology that makes cats fly, like the person's not going to go, where did you come from tonight? Right? They're going to go, what? How did that work? So can you see how communication is like all about signal and a response? So you need to make sure your whatever you say is getting the response you want. And unless if someone is changing the subject, saying, where did you come from or whatever, it's not working. And you need to take responsibility for that. Too many people kind of think, oh, they didn't understand. That's their problem. No, it's your problem. And you need to change it, because people that have great communication and snazzy titles and taglines that make people go, wow, it didn't happen by magic. They worked on it. And if people don't really understand, and you know deep down, you know if people aren't really understanding or really getting you, or like, you know whether it's an investor or a partner or whatever. And by the way, this is not just in person, guys. Like, this obviously will translate onto your website. If people are hitting your website, it's something I do with clients called the 5-second test. Do people hit your website and understand your website within 5 seconds? Because that it's been proven that's how long people will spend before making a decision whether to stay or bounce. Okay, so what we want to do is we need to take you from where you are now to a point where everyone understands what you do. Okay, and goes, oh, that's interesting. Okay, and there's a few, like, this is there's a few parts to this. The thing we need to start with is that initial like 20-second intro. Okay, and that's what a lot of people call the elevator pitch. Okay, because it's called an elevator pitch because imagine you an elevator tonight and Richard jumped in beside you and said, oh, I heard you've got a startup. Oh, tell me about it. You've got about 20 seconds. You want that to count. Okay, so I've studied a lot of different formats of elevator pitches over the years, and there's one which is created by a VC called Aaron from Silicon Valley. Show it to you, and I want you to be able to use it because it's a very practical framework that you guys in a few minutes can take what you're currently doing, push it through this framework, and you've got something which is a really snazzy elevator pitch that everyone will understand. And the first point is you need to get people understanding it. Then you can add some magic dust with some cool words. But most people just go to the cool words and no one understands it. Okay, so let's have a look at this, because this is the 3 of the activators. Quite simply, if you had bad messaging, guys, it doesn't matter if you have the world's best growth hackers, you've got loads of Facebook ads running, it won't work. It just will not work. Just in the same way that if you have great messaging, but you're targeting the wrong people, it won't work. It just won't work. So we need to get this on point. So here's the elevator pitch framework. Okay, so it works a little bit like this. For a target customer who has a certain need, your product is what's a market category. Now it fits in a market category. Now what's a market category? A market category is like edtech, fintech, is a lawyer, is a taxi app. Uber is a taxi app. Okay, that one key benefit, one great reason people use it, unlike other competition, this is one way you're different. Okay, so let's use this as an example. I'll use Netflix for this. Okay, so just to kind of run through as an example. Okay, and then you're going to do it for yours. Okay, so what's the target customer for Netflix? Okay, so who do you think would anyone like to have a guess? Who's the target customer for Netflix? Who would be the target customer for Netflix? So for TV and movie fans, they're TV and movie fans, aren't they? Yeah. And then who has a need? What is their need? Well, their need is they want to watch quality TV at home, quality programs at home. Okay, not away, but they want to do it at home. Okay, or on the move, whatever. Netflix is what's the category? Would it be called like a streaming app, a streaming service? Entertainment company, entertainment streaming company. What's one key benefit? The main key benefit would be something like allows you to watch tens of thousands of programs in one place, tens of thousands of the best movies and TV shows in one place. Okay, Pretty simple. Then you say unlike. What's a similar competition that's a bit different? Similar competition. So what would be a competition? So you might say unlike satellite TV, or unlike terrestrial TV. I don't know, we call it terrestrial TV in the UK. Maybe you just call it satellite TV. Netflix does not have any advertising. So can you see how it's really clear? It's almost impossible for you to have use this framework to have said it to somebody and for them not to understand it. Okay. Now, at the very least, they're going to go, oh, how does that work? And that's the goal. That's the plan. That's what you want. You want them to open up a conversation then. Okay. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to then take this, and I want you to do this for your company. I want you to take a minute and I want you to type it into the chat. All right. This will be gone off the screen in a moment. This is the best elevator pitching stuff. I know a lot of you guys need to improve your messaging. You know it too. So this is in 5 minutes, you can go, or less, you can go from that through to use this, put in your details on anything within the brackets and type it into the chat, and I'll read out one or two and I'll give feedback on them. Okay. So I'm just going to put a minute or two on the timer now for you to do that. Hey, some good questions coming through. I'll just grab this. It's hard to focus for when you have different target audience. Yeah, I totally get that, but like that's the challenging thing, isn't it? I didn't say it was completely easy, but like even like let's just say eBay or Uber, like they have multiple target audiences, don't they? They have like say eBay has buyers and sellers. Uber has drivers and passengers. But like the way you think about it is like your website can, like the homepage of your website can only really say a few words. You can't say both target customers there, can you? So chances are, like what I want you to do for this one, just pick who your primary target customer is. Like if you have a marketplace, I'd always encourage you to focus on the buyers because they're always the harder of the two in the marketplace to get. So focus on one today. And, you know, like the reality is you will need an elevator pitch for both. But focus on the one which is harder to get, which is usually the person paying you money. It's easier to find people to give money to. Isn't that true? Hopefully that helps, but a very good question. Cool. So guys, if anyone wants feedback, oh, lovely. Well done, Nicola. So guys, if anyone else wants feedback, drop it in now. Otherwise, I'll figure that you're kind of like working on it yourself. But yeah, good. I see some people dropping in. Okay, I'll give feedback on these. Any ones that come in the next minute or so, I'll give feedback, minute or two, I'll give feedback on. So Nicola, for growth experts who are looking to maximize, Mito is a messaging marketing platform that lets you to send bulk personalized messages. Unlike Twilio, the product is zero code base and ideal for marketers. Okay, so Nicola, this is good. I like it. And I'm your target customer. So this is cool. I like it. How you can make this, like, this is good, right? So this is good. How you could make, I always like to look at everything I do. How can I make it 5% better? Because everything's good. I'm just going to give some suggestions how you might tweak it a bit. For growth experts, that's cool, who are looking to maximize their marketing returns efforts. That's a little generic, that bit there. Okay, so maximize their marketing efforts. Considering you're a messaging marketing platform, I'd do something there. So for growth experts who are looking to, you know, this is where you could get specific, experiment with messaging, text messaging, or is it text messaging or just like, because messages can be in-app messages or it can be text messages. My sense is since it's Twilio, it's text messaging, but you might say not. If it is, I'd say that because a few different things. Like it could be in-app, it could be on-site messaging, you know, things like that. It could be Facebook Messenger, and maybe that is for you. So SMS, yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So why not say that? Like, so for SMS and social messaging or something like that, because then it's like, oh, even more interesting. Like if I saw that, I'd be even more interested now. Because like, you know, messaging, I thought maybe, you know, messaging can just mean a lot of different things. I know you understand what it is, but I didn't quite understand. Now I understand more. And I'm in the market looking at for SMS and Facebook Messenger platform options. So, you know, people that will look at that and go, oh yeah, cool. Because what you want is people who have kind of started playing with Twilio, realized it was a bit complicated, and then gone, great. Yeah, so I really like that, Nicola. So there's just a quick bit of feedback. I think there's something around the maximize the marketing efforts could be something more to do with for marketing experts who are looking for a simple way to utilize SMS and social messaging in their marketing. That could be one. That's quite good, actually. A simple way, because you're going against the people who are doing it like a bit more the hard way. Anyway, cool. Well done. Dejan, for game developers who need backend services, ServerBytes is a SaaS that help overcome the issues of using multiple tools like GameSpark. Oh, just lost that. Like GameSpark. ServerBytes is a marketplace with many plugins, allows you to write your own plugins. Okay, cool. I like that, Dejan. Again, it's good. And the thing is, like, it is quite a niche product. So like what I like is, I actually like the fact that you're super focused on your target market there. There's a few things that are a bit generic, like a SaaS. Like that doesn't, like, it's basically like an online like business, right? Is a SaaS. So, you know, there might be something a little bit more there, but like it does kind of tell me it's all online, I guess. So it's not bad. Yeah, I think that's good, dude. Like what I like is you're super focused with your target audience. Like that's the best thing, what you've got there. So, and that makes everything else work really well. I like it. The one thing is maybe is a SaaS that help overcome the issues of multiple tools. Like a SaaS, like there's so many different types of SaaS businesses, right? So it doesn't, like, you know, everything from Dropbox to, you know, everything is a SaaS, right? So Mila, HR manager, a lot of people. Save time. Yeah, so Milos, yours doesn't really follow the format. You see, it says has a customer need, who recruit a lot of people. That's not a need, right? For HR managers who need to recruit a lot of people, who recruit a lot of people is not quite a need. What's the problem they have? For HR managers who struggle finding good candidates, that's a better way to describe that. It's a recruitment tool with assessment, which saves time to discover talents. Yeah, unlike what, you know, this last bit, unlike competition, the product is a unique differentiator. I'm missing that off yours, me lost that last bit. And then the last one, I'll say for Drago, for professionals with working with children with speech and other development problems, who need to use technology products to enhance their therapy process. Voice Toys is a system of devices, which is a toy and tool at the same time. Generic toys, sensory. Okay, this is like, you're in the right direction, Drago. I think you're close. There's a few tweaks I'll do to make it. No, that's cool. It's all good. And there's a few. No, this is totally normal. Like everyone, the first draft is always a bit like wobbly, and you get better every time. So what I would do is there's probably a nicer way that you'd say for professionals working with children with speech and other developmental problems. There's probably a shorter way you could describe that. Just have a think. You might know what that is better than me, actually, because you might know what that industry is. So I just look at that because that's a bit wordy. Then I would also say a system of devices, toy and tool at the same time. Elegant way we can say that. Voice toys is a how will we say this? I'm just trying to, I've got it on the tip of my tongue. Something along the lines of voice toys is both a tool that helps the children talk while also being fun for where the kids have fun using it. You want to talk a little bit like that, because that's why people use toys, isn't it? Like, this is a toy that the kids will have fun while it helping them. So voice toys is a fun toy that kids love while also helping them develop their speech. You know, see, that's a different way of saying it. And it's like, oh yeah, okay. Can you see that? That's really good. Cool. All right. Okay, guys. So hopefully that's useful. I love giving like one-on-one feedback on that, because like I do really like at your stage in your companies, it's hard, and it's hard to do it yourself. You need someone on the outside kind of giving you feedback on it. So it's just really cool to do some live coaching with you guys. Okay. So guys, what we've been covering so far is we've been really kind of focusing on those core forces of gravity. Now I want to change gears a little bit. Okay, now we have those kind of building blocks. Remember, we have that one-page marketing plan that we're building, and we have those 3 activators now in place. So now we're in a good starting point. Now what do we do to start building out the plan? Okay, now this is what I like to do, something which is called leverage R&D now. Okay, so what does R&D stand for? Anyone? R&D. I had on the screen. What's R&D? R&D. What is R&D? So yeah, research and development is what most people say, but I don't call it research and development. Okay, I call it something else. R&D in my world is called rob and duplicate. Okay, rob and duplicate. Or steal like an artist, as Steve Jobs and Picasso famously said. Okay, so steal like an artist. Now, what I'm not saying is like, you know, copy what everyone else is doing. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is we can get inspired, particularly people with similar target audiences and similar types of businesses than we do. And then we can play around with that. Okay. So let me put it this way. If you knew a similar business to yours that was in a different market, let's say America, was doing really well and scaling and, you know, had millions of customers or millions of revenue, whatever, would it be useful to know their marketing plan and to know how they get their customers? Would that be useful? The answer is probably yes. So thankfully, there are a few tools for that. And that's what I will always do when I'm thinking of creating a plan. Sure, I have my ideas of what I should be doing, but you know what? I also want to leverage. Let's see what's working for other people. And then I'll reverse engineer that a little bit, and that will factor into my decision making, because there's data out there to tell me what works and what doesn't. And I want to leverage that data to give me some ideas. So there's a couple of tools we can use for that. Now, one of my favorite tools is for this is, let me just flick here. I'm gonna flick out here, and there's a great tool I like for R&D called SimilarWeb. Okay, again, you can use the free version. The paid version definitely does have some more advanced features, and that allows me to come up here and I can start looking at competitors here. Now, you know, I would say what I'll recommend you to use like a larger company. Don't, like, if you've got a tiny little like startup that your competitors with, they won't come up. It needs to be of a certain size, but that's cool. So let's just say you're looking to launch let's just say a travel business, or let's say, a SaaS business. Let's say you're targeting someone and you're similar in space than, say, someone like Dropbox. So let's just go on to, you can put it in here and put in dropbox.com, and we can start looking at where they're getting their traffic from. We'll bring up a report, and it's kind of a bit like sneaking into their office when they've got Google Analytics open, peering over their shoulders and taking some, which is kind of cool. Okay, so I'm just scrolling down here, and it starts telling me what traffic they're getting, where their audience is from. We can start seeing exactly where their audience is from. We can see where they're, yep, let's move that out of the way. Get rid of that. Boom. We can start seeing where they're getting their traffic from. Now, you guys may know this, direct traffic, this big one here, that's from people who know the brand and put in dropbox.com or have it saved. Now, that's not a huge surprise for a larger business that has good brand recognition. That's not surprising. Okay, it's but yeah, so that's kind of quite common for companies with good brand recognition, and a lot of people have like Dropbox saved as a bookmark and stuff like that. All right, and that will also be there. Now, referrals, we'll be able to look at this deeper later, but these are essentially websites that are referring traffic to them. We'll be able to find out exactly which ones these are later. Search are people that are Googling it, essentially. Social, you can guess what that is. Email is big for them. And then display advertising they're doing as well. Okay, so this is interesting. So when I start looking at this, I can kind of go down a bit more. We can see exactly what websites are referring them the most traffic. So this is cool because, like, for example, I've never done this. I've never done this exact example before. And I can see there's websites like Patreon, like javlibrary.com, Steam community. Like, there's loads of websites here that I wouldn't have guessed. And if you're a similar type of business than Dropbox, these are all businesses you want to know about, because you can see that it's proven that Dropbox gets a lot of traffic from them. All right, it's not you guessing. So that means, what could you do? Well, maybe you could advertise on Steam community, maybe, things like that. Because there's a lot of people there that have the need for Dropbox. Okay. So again, just scrolling down a bit more. Now we can start seeing the split between organic and search traffic, organic and paid. Now, what's interesting about seeing stats like this? Well, if I see a competitor business is using organic paid, if I see they're using paid, what does it tell me? What do you guys think? What do you look into that? When you see that, what does it tell you? When I see like Dropbox having 12%, like about an eighth of its traffic comes from paid, of its search traffic, what does it tell me? Now, some people might say, I've had people say, oh, well, their marketing is not working, so they have to pay for it. Well, no, that's just not true. Because like Dropbox are, like, let's be honest, guys, Dropbox are pretty smart. I think we'd all be happy to be in Dropbox's position. So if they're using a marketing channel, and we can see here that they're using a channel like Facebook, or in this case, Google Ads, for a long period of time, either they're stupid and they're wasting money, or they're really smart and it works. And like, I think we can all guess, for a company like this, which of those two they are. They're smart. So this tells me, I look at this and I go, oh, maybe I want to do something similar. Works for them. It might work for me. Again, this is just ideas to help you form your marketing strategy. Okay. Then here on organic, you can see exactly what people are searching for. Organically similar, it tells you the top keywords. Now, there's a lot of branded keywords here. When you log in, you can see, you can filter out the branded keywords and see the non-branded keywords. These are exactly the things people are typing into Google to find these businesses. Super powerful stuff. Okay, you can see stuff from social. Interesting. YouTube is pretty big. That's quite interesting, isn't it? What I thought like Facebook and Twitter would have been bigger. Display advertising tells me a bit about like retargeting ads, top publishers they're featured on. Super interesting. TED.com. Who would have known? TED.com. There you go. So there's lots of good data in here, and it even like it tells you similar other types of businesses as well. Different types of mobile apps. Okay, so can you see an incredibly powerful tool? So guys, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'd love you to jump into SimilarWeb now. I'm going to put a minute or two on the timer. I want you to go to similarweb.com and again, pick a large business that is in a similar space that you would be interested how they get their traffic. Do not, okay? And everyone always asks me, oh, I can't find this small business that's in my local village. No, pick a larger business and do some research on it and find some interesting stats. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a minute or two now to kind of like play around with this a bit. And then I'd love you just to share one thing you like about it. Okay, so I'll give you a minute or two now to share that, to go and do that now. Any questions, just let me know. Just share in the chat. What do you like about just been looking at pretty epic growth hacking tool? What do you like about that? Search terms, Braslav says, gave me ideas about my content. Love that. Yeah, keep those ideas coming. What else? What did you like? Nicola says it's great. We can identify markets, have valid inputs, search terms. Love that. Find our competitors' target market and referrals. Dude, that's super good, Dejan. Search terms gave me ideas about content I should be producing. Bratislav, yeah. Referrals list, rivals marketing strategy and channels. I know it's super good. You know, just on the idea, if you're on the area of content marketing ideas, I'll share with you another great tool. If you're liking these kind of tools, let me just jump in here. There's another great one I love called BuzzSumo. I'll just jump into buzzsumo.com. Boom. Okay. So there's more competitive analysis here, but there's one particularly feature I really like on this. So let's just say you're, there's someone here who I can't remember, Nicola or someone is about marketing, right? So about SMS marketing. So let me just type in SMS marketing here. And what BuzzSumo is, it finds me all the top most shared content about that subject. So this is stuff which is proven to be people to have found engaging. Okay, viral content. Okay, so you can see here, again, you can just log in, you get more insights, but you can see here that these are all content posts which have been proven to be successful. So for example, R&D guys, the beginner's guide to SMS marketing, getting started with SMS marketing. Now, that means chances are a post with that, like maybe you take that and maybe you do an Instagram post about that with that title, or maybe you tweak the title slightly. Instead of the entrepreneur's guide, the growth marketer's guide to SMS marketing, getting started with SMS marketing. Can you see how you can take these and come up with other really good ideas really, really fast? Yeah. So a ton of good ideas here. Ton of good ideas. So maybe just I'll let you go. This is buzzsumo.com. I'll give you a minute. You can just have a play around with that one yourself now as well. Really cool tool. Yeah. So you'll like it. Like, I think I always find with these tools, once you use it once, you kind of remember it. So rather than me just like going too fast, I want to give you a minute. Go into BuzzSumo now and have a look to see if you can find something that works for, just go in and just type in, tell me what you find. So just for the No Limit Hub guys, like Bratislav, etc. I don't know why, but for some reason my camera isn't working anymore. So what I'm going to do is just when the guys have an activity, they're looking at BuzzSumo and they're just looking at some content ideas for a minute. While they're doing that, I'm going to leave Zoom and then I'm going to come straight back in and hopefully that'll have corrected the problem. Okay,
no problem.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Easy, easy, easy. Cool, guys. So I'd love you to share in the chat. What did you like about BuzzSumo? What is like one idea you got? How could you use that? How could you use BuzzSumo? I use it all the time whenever I'm planning content ideas. I always like to brainstorm a ton of ideas first, and I'll go into BuzzSumo and I'll drop in a few topics, and you just have to look at the stuff that works, and then you go, oh, I know, I could write a post about something similar to that, and it takes a lot of the heavy lifting out of coming up with good content headlines, because headlines is like one of the most important parts, right? So guys, what do you like about BuzzSumo? What's useful about that for you? What is useful about that tool for you? Love you to share. Just share in the chat. What is one thing you like about that tool? Yeah, content type filter. Beside ideas for blog posts, I can diversify it by type. Super good. What else? What did everyone else like about that tool? Super good. We can copy and modify slightly some of the content for our ads using the titles we know work. Nicola, you hit it on the head, right? Like, that's exactly it. Rather than guessing or like looking for divine inspiration, just take stuff that is proven to be viral and then modify it slightly so you're not copying it. That's essentially what R&D is, isn't it? Cool. So great, guys. I'm glad that's useful. Use that in your marketing toolkit for sure. Okay, guys. So the final thing I want to talk about is, we've talked about getting your activators on point, getting R&D set up so you're able to leverage ideas from other people. And then the third and the final thing is how to accelerate. And I want to talk about this is when you start talking about channels and stuff like that, and it's always going to be different for B2B and B2C, everything, but here's a strategy that will work for everyone. Okay, this is my go-to strategy when I'm wanting to enter a new market, and I've done a lot of international stuff over the years. I'll just make sure I'm spotlighted actually. Yeah, boom. So over the years, I've entered lots of markets. And one of the key things I learned, like back a few years ago, and we had millions of users. We were scaling really, really fast. And I always remember we always believed our core market was the UK because it was an English football game, basically. And it was all in English and had a lot of English footballers in it. But then when we started looking at our analytics a few months in, we found that actually our biggest single market was Turkey. Okay. When we looked at a graph and we were like, oh, okay, you didn't realize that. And ever since what we did was we then kind of changed, we also put a version of the game in that language, and people sales started skyrocketing and the revenue came in and all this kind of stuff. So look, that was a lesson to me very early on, that you never assume where your biggest market is. And be online, whether we like it or not. Like some of you were online anyway, others maybe would have been more of a traditional business, but like COVID has forced you to go online. And the great thing about online is you have a global market now, right? And so many people, just like I did with my gaming company that time, was like, we just assume our local market is our target market. We assume it because we know it well and it's what we're familiar with. Whereas for many of us, like we do have global markets. So at some point you're going to be entering global markets. Okay. And I've done it numerous times. Like right now, my growth hacking business, one thing we did recently was we entered the Middle Eastern market. And we're huge in the Middle East now. And Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, like I've all been to all these wonderful places now. And like, obviously I'm not from there and I didn't know, I didn't know anyone there. So how do we enter, how do you think about entering markets? Because I know with everything happening in the world today, a lot of you will be thinking of doing that. And I have like one like key way that I want to talk about that I use every time. All right. And it's what I call the tribal growth strategy. Okay, kind of like a growth hacking strategy, right? Now, when you're thinking about entering a market, this is the way I always think about it, right? There's essentially two different ways if you're looking to, like essentially if you're going into a new market, what you're trying to do is you're trying to grow an audience of, you're trying to grow an audience in that market, right? Of potential people who are interested in your product, okay? So you've kind of got two options here now. One, you can grow an audience. Okay, that's option one. Now, how do you grow an audience? Well, you put out content, you message them, you do like gethunter.io, find their email addresses, message them, do some ads, all this good stuff, right? Get interviewed, like get some PR, all this stuff. And these are all like great ideas. Of course you do them. But guess what? What's the problem with them? It takes lots of time and it can be expensive, right? To grow an audience of like, you know, a decent sized audience in a new market, it can take a lot of time. It can be super expensive. What if there's a second way? Because that's the first way for sure. What if there's another way though? Well, what's the other way? Well, the other way is, what if you could leverage? What if there was somebody that already had an audience of your exact target market that you know that, like, you know, those people we were talking about earlier? These people here, do you remember them? What if there's someone in your market that has already spent years and millions of dollars building a target group of those exact people? And they have their email addresses. They, you know, have them in a community. They know their contact details. Well, what if you were able to take that group of people that are already there and leverage that? So really what I want to talk about here is when we're entering a new market, we have two options. One, we can build an audience ourselves, or we can go to somebody that already has that market and we can find a way to leverage that. Okay. And that's what we call the tribal growth strategy. Okay. Now there's, I do that all the time going into new markets, always the first thing. And one of the main ways of doing this, it's kind of like how to growth hack partnerships. Okay. Because like really one way, how I think of partnerships is I find people with tribes of my customers and I find a way to do a deal with them so they promote my company. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me give you some examples. Okay. So I want to give you a really, really famous example of you know, a business you all know that this was the main strategy they did, made all the difference. So a really famous example of that is let me find it here, is Airbnb. Okay, this is more in the B2C space. Well, I want to make sure, I know there's some B2C people in the group today, and I want to make sure I cover some B2C, B2B, as well, some B2C. But guys, this is so relevant for B2B. It's crazy. Like, you know, it's totally B2B based as well. But I want to give an example of how Airbnb did this, right? So if you think about it, they wanted to leverage a group. They kind of started thinking, where are my customers? Because Airbnb struggled for a long time. And that's something people don't really talk about. Airbnb went out of business so many times, almost went out of business so many times. Famously, the founders were so behind on money that they had bought cereal in bulk, and were selling it to people to make enough money to keep Airbnb open. They were doing that badly. And at some point, the founder was out speaking to customers, because you know the way everyone talks, you got to speak to your customers. So he went out and started speaking to customers. And when he said, like, where do you currently go to get property rentals? And you know, currently people are trying to rent properties. Where do you go for that right now? Because he didn't know. And everyone when he was interviewing them, everyone kept on saying the same answers, which was, we go to a website called Craigslist. We go to Craigslist. We go to Craigslist. Okay. And he didn't know about that. The founder didn't know. So he checked out Craigslist, and he saw that there's a section in Craigslist, a huge website, but there's a little section that says property rentals. And that's where everyone kind of posts the short-term property rentals. And he was like, all right, cool. And as he kind of like scrolled through Craigslist, he found that the majority of these places had photographs, but they were taken with terrible cameras, like a Nokia 5110 or something, and it looked like a horror movie. And this got him excited, because he knew Airbnb always paid premium to get a professional photographer to go out to the properties and take photos and stuff. So it got him excited. So then the next thing was like, okay, I know my customers are here. A bunch of them are here. How do I somehow connect my product to this place where all my customers are? Okay, how do I do that? And this is the creative bit. All right, one is find out where they are. The second thing is try and connect. And they did something really smart. They hired a team of interns who were kind of like low cost, you know, kind of like entry-level team members. And whenever someone would put a new property listing on Airbnb, someone from the intern team at Airbnb would take that property listing, save the images, copy and paste it into Craigslist, to that exact section of property rentals in Craigslist, because that's where all the traffic was. And to make a booking, someone would have to click on the link and go to the other, someone would have to click on the link, and guess what? That would bring them to Airbnb themselves. Okay. Now here's an example of that, real life example of one of these posts back in 2011, this was, and someone would post this is on Craigslist, and if someone wants to get a booking, click this and that. Okay, so this is just a really, really life example of doing this. Okay, and this is the single thing that Airbnb were able to use to scale and get critical mass by essentially like connecting themselves to this place that already had their customers, and then get kind of siphon off those customers to their product. Okay, so what does this mean for you? It's great for Airbnb. How could you do this? Well, the first thing to do is you've already got your target market, which we talked about earlier. Okay, you remember that person that we talked about earlier, target audience? So the first thing to do is, where are they congregating? Where are they hanging out? Online and offline. Okay, where do they go? What are they part of any communities? What Facebook groups are they in? I remember somebody was sharing earlier about gardeners or something. Like, they'll all be part of a couple. They'll all go to the same stores. They'll all go to they'll all be in the same Facebook groups. They'll all read the same magazines. So the first thing to do is do a quick brainstorm of 1 or 2 places now that you think your target audience is, let's just say in a new market that you want to enter. So I want you to just to brainstorm 1 or 2 now. Where do they go virtually? What magazines are they reading? What websites are they going to? Just like brainstorm 1 or 2 places. What conferences do they go to? What events do they go to? Because all these people, like the events, they'll have an email list full of your target audience. So I'll give you a minute or two just to brainstorm. And guys, get super specific here. If you're just say like Facebook, LinkedIn, it's not specific enough. You need to think of the exact like influencer they follow, like the name of the person, or the LinkedIn group that they're part of. Like you need to think super. Yeah, but which LinkedIn group, Bratislav? Which one? Like the name of it. And you might go, oh, I don't know. Exactly. You need to know. Because there's like millions of Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. You want to know the exact name of the LinkedIn group which your customers are in. And if you don't know that yet, you don't know your stuff yet. You don't know your stuff well enough. Because like there'll be one group, or like a Facebook group or LinkedIn group where all your customers are. You want to be in that, answering questions, helping them. Let's say you're running a webinar, you can invite them. There's no cost to this. It takes a bit of time, sure. Does it make sense? So guys, I want to leave you with one last tool. If you want to find out some ways how to kind of like use a tool to explore some of these ideas, I want to share with you, there's a cool tool, data mining tool, which is on Facebook. Called it's a data mining tool called Facebook IQ, and you can get to it by, once you're in the ad manager, you just go in. You can go here to the Facebook ad manager, and when you scroll down, it's called Audience Insights. Okay, so you just write that down. It's called Audience Insights here. Okay, in the Facebook ad manager, it is a free tool, but you'll need the full Facebook ad manager to access it. Then you can, like I'll get rid of the United States. So let's just say you're looking to, let's just say I have an app. Let's say someone said gardeners, right? I know someone in the group is targeting gardeners. So I'll just use that as an example. And let's say I don't want to enter the London market. So I can just go in here and type in London, London, England, boom. And it starts telling me the breakdown of people in London. And then I can go in here and I can start targeting, putting in gardening. Cool, gardening. And you can put in gardening here, or there might be a magazine like Gardener's Way. I'm not a big gardener, so I don't know. Yeah. But like, you'll know, like there'll be maybe an author or a famous gardener that everyone follows. You can put them in here. Let's just say, I'm just going to put in gardening. Okay, now it tells me my potential size of market. I can see in London, there's about like 600,000 people in London that like gardening. Not a big surprise, is that? Like, you know, understand, but a bit more female skewed, not a big surprise either. Yeah, but this is interesting. I'm going to click on this one here. Page likes. And it starts giving me a list of places that, like, listen, Facebook knows more about data on people's interests than any other platform in the world, okay? And this tells me that, oh, there's some interesting stuff here I can see already. People that are into gardening also like furniture outlet stores, and also like the Jazz Cafe, also likes the Southbank Centre, also like Secret Cinema, London for Free magazine, Secret Londonist magazine. So can you see how we can do a few things with this? We can, you know, on Facebook, we can target gardeners, but also we can start looking at these other places, which Facebook is telling us there is a high number of gardeners in these places. Okay, people that like gardening. Okay. And what can you do with that? Well, you can either target them with Facebook ads, or even if you don't want to do Facebook ads, you can contact these places. Like you can contact Londonist and get an article featured. You know, it has a lot of gardeners that read it. That's a magazine, by the way, Londonist. You can try and do some PR with them, or you can try and do an event in the South Bank Centre, a free event for gardeners in the South Bank Centre, which is a venue. Can you see how this all of a sudden is giving me ideas? Because that's where my customers are. Make sense? So guys, I just want to check in. What we've been doing over the last hour or two or three is we've been talking about how to get this launch plan in place. We talked about what are the critical things you need to think about for your launch plan. And we talked about the 3 activators. We talked about how to leverage R&D. And then we talked about some scaling. Kind of once you have that, how to use partnerships and growth hack tribes of customers. And I gave you some examples of other businesses that have done it, like Airbnb. We did a bit of an exercise, you thinking some. And then I shared with you a tool, which is really useful. I use a lot for my targeting data mining tool on Facebook. So guys, I'd love to just check in. We're just coming to the end of the session, and I've talked about a lot of stuff. We've covered a lot of ground. Okay, so I just want to respect you. I know it's Friday night, and respect you for being fully focused. You had some great interactions here, and super impressed. I must say, super impressed. I'd love to know, just final question. What was the one thing that was most useful for you from today's session? We talked about a lot of stuff, but what was the one thing, real takeaway for you? Nicola likes the tools. Thought you would, Nicola. You're a marketer. Yeah, cool tools. So a lot of people like the tools. Yeah, a lot of good tools there. But it's always a mix, isn't it? Like the tools alone don't get you to where you need to. It's about always combining the latest tools with the right kind of plan and, like, you know, the messaging and all that kind of stuff. Tools in the triangle, Milos says, the 3 activators. Drago says, hard to say, but I think it's the feeling that it's all possible. Yeah, cool, dude. I'm so happy. That's cool. I'm glad. Milos says, deconstruction of SMART goals known already, but some was original somehow. That's good. Like, you know, think of it this way, guys. Like now you're going into the year like the 3%. So like you're ahead of the game. Most people haven't planned their years yet. Some people will never. And you've already got your big goal for 2021. And I like, hopefully that excites you and you're like, yeah. We all need to know what the goals are, write them down and commit to them. Yes, 3%, not to forget. Cool. So guys, it's always an honor doing a session for you guys. So honored to ask me here this evening, and have a great weekend.